ASU is hoping to run it back as the Big 12 champions this year, but these three teams have something to say about that.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Richie Bradshaw, your friend, your expert, your guide for all things Sun Devils, from the gridiron to the hardwood and everything in between. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today's agenda, it's nice and simple. There's three teams that I think ASU could face in the Big 12 championship game. One of them is an offensive juggernaut. One of them is Frankenstein's monster. The other one is just a consistent annual contender. I'll give some shout outs as well as we near the end. But before we get started, I want to thank each and every single one of you for making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. This is not necessarily not numbered, ordered, but numbered 1, 2, 3, according to who I think is the biggest threat. In fact, I could shuffle these in whatever order, and I'd feel pretty good that those teams would threaten ASU. But we will start off with the offensive juggernaut that is the Baylor Bears. I am high on Baylor, and I made a bold prediction way earlier this year that Baylor was going to be the team that ASU would take on in the Big 12 championship game. Raised a lot of eyebrows. I'm not backing down on it. I still feel very good about that. I will make my final prediction probably in a month or so. I still need some time to really go over it, make sure I'm confident. But Baylor's legit, especially offensively. They got Sawyer Robertson by himself. He's just an excellent quarterback. He is him. He is Himmy Turner. He is Timothy Chalamet. All the other puns that you can throw out there. He's legit. If it's not Sam Leavitt, Sawyer Robertson is probably the second best quarterback in this conference. And he's got a lot of weapons at his disposal too. Bryson Washington, I think he's probably the best running back in the conference as of now. He's going to do some heavy lifting for that team this year. He's going to run for 1,000 yards again. I could see him lead the conference in rushing yards. I could see him lead the conference in touchdowns. I would love to see him become just this excellent, and I mean like elite receiver out of the backfield as well. But he's a threat in itself that's going to take some pressure off of Robertson, who can move, by the way. He is mobile. He's also got Josh Cameron at wide receiver. He's got just a really good cast of receivers, honestly. But Josh Cameron, he's really good. And he was productive last year. And again, going into this year, God, I don't know who wide receiver 2 in the conference would be behind Jordan Tyson, but Josh Cameron would have a very good argument to be that guy. And tight end Michael Trigg could be the best tight end in the conference. There's another guy we'll talk about a little later on the show as well. But those three, that set of triplets for Sawyer Robertson, Bryson Washington in the backfield, Josh Cameron outside, and Michael Trigg lined up at tight end. Great weapons there. Offensive line is good. The defense, I think, should be good enough. And at the end of the day, that's really all they need this defense to be, is good enough. Because we should get fireworks out of this offense. They have the potential to end up hosting the number 1 offense in the conference. They're going to sling the ball around the yard. They're going to score a lot of touchdowns. Also, keep in mind that Dave Aranda is coaching for his job. The first half of last season, it was kind of a wonder he wasn't fired. By the end of last season, you were like, okay, well, no, they're building some momentum. Maybe there's something here. Maybe something finally clicked for Aranda to get this team rolling in the right direction. So we're going to find out if that momentum that he is building is going to end up being sustainable, or if it was a flash in the pan. And these players are very much all in on him because they could have lost a lot. But this core returned, and they are going to be doing whatever they can to protect their head coach. But I mean, they also have a legitimate chance to win the conference. That again, that offense alone, I can't get past it. That's just they're going to score 30 points a game. They're going to be one of the best passing offenses in the league. They're going to be one of the highest scoring offenses in the league. They've got several players who could be all conference. And again, Sawyer Robertson, probably the second best quarterback in the Big 12 behind Leavitt. Baylor fans will put him number one. Other people may put him number one. I wouldn't call you crazy. I would, but I wouldn't at the same time. Hopefully you understand what I mean by that. But Baylor is just, they're deadly, man. If that defense does its job, and I mean, they just need to be average. I don't know how great they can be. I don't follow Baylor football. So I don't know if they are walking into the season with the best defense in the league or the worst defense in the league. But as long as it's not the worst, as long as it's average, if it's the 8th best unit in the Big 12, they're going to win 9 games easily. Now, they are facing an absolute gauntlet of a schedule to open the year, which could easily put them out of the Big 12 competition. But they get to host ASU, and that's where I kind of want to take this now, is ASU does get a chance to play Baylor week 4 in Waco to open Big 12 play. For the second straight year and their second year in the Big 12, ASU will open conference play on the road in the state of Texas. Last year, they lost to Texas Tech. They were not ready. They will go to Baylor this year. That's a game that I have marked up as a loss for a little while. Hopefully that will change. But, I mean, that's a tough game. And talk about a heck of a challenge for ASU to get started in. There are 3 non-conference games: NAU, Mississippi State, Texas State. None of those teams have offenses that are really going to just grind you down to nothing. Baylor is going to do that. So ASU needs to be able to be 100% good to go for a road trip to a Big 12 title contender against a prolific offense, because we could end up seeing this game turn into a shootout, like a 35-31 final kind of thing. Sawyer Robertson is just really good, man, and they got the weapons. Now, ASU has the secondary. They have Keith Abney and Javen Robinson, who are corner 1A, corner 1B. Xavier Alford, the best safety in the Big 12, one of the best safeties in college football. He's going to help out with that. The rest of the team has plenty of depth as well to help mitigate that stuff. But you're going to have a very difficult time slowing that offense down and potentially putting them to a stop unless they just flat out are bad. And I do not foresee that happening. So when you get to face them, it's very early in the year. That's kind of a blessing and a curse. The blessing is you get to face them early in the year. So, and it's your first Big 12 game too. So here's a staple win for you. This is a really good start to get everything going. But in another sense, you can look at it and you're like, maybe ASU wins, maybe ASU doesn't win. But if you do face them in the Big 12 championship game, you're talking about 3 months that have gone by since you've played them. And both of these teams are going to be very, very different in December compared to where they were in August. So that'll be really interesting. I am happy that ASU does get to take them on. I wish it was at home, but, not the hand you were dealt. Waco is a difficult place to play. I would not call it the most difficult place in the Pac-12, RIP, in the Big 12, but I'm certainly not looking forward to that trip. I've been to Waco. There's not a lot to do, which means a lot of people want to go watch their football. Baylor's got a good team this year that's worth watching. Baylor, for the longest time, has been my pick to take on ASU in the Big 12 championship game. I'm not backing down off that just yet, but I do think that there is more competition, and competition is a great, great problem to have for your conference, especially when ASU plays in the Big 12, which no one seems to respect. But, that's not my business. My business is just winning this conference. And ASU's got a great chance to do that, but they got to get past Baylor and they got to get past two other teams, one of which is just putting together this Frankenstein's monster kind of look. That's coming up next. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let me talk to you about our friends over at Monarch Money. If you ever wish that managing your money was easier, with Monarch Money, it can be. If you're trying to grow your savings or plan for a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing money, you're building your wealth. Speaking of building wealth, you know it's really hard to build your wealth when you are constantly using takeout order apps to get your food. I figured that out the hard way. But when I realized how much I was spending, thanks to Monarch Money, I was able to really put a constraint on that. And now I'm building up my wealth. I can also, if I ever want to, track my finances with someone else. You can take a look at multiple accounts. Everything is easier to manage your money day to day. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thanks as always for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. Shout out to my everydayers. We're here every day. So we talked about this dynamic offense with Baylor that could run ASU off the field. The remaining teams on here have good offenses. They're just not Baylor offenses. This second team, very interesting to me. They have built this Frankenstein's monster with the transfer portal. They have brought in so many good players. And I mean, they have rebuilt so much of this team. They have reloaded positions that were questionable, and they're bringing back their quarterback. I am, of course, referencing Texas Tech. Texas Tech, what do we do with them? Every year is Texas Tech's year. This is going to be the year. They're going to put it all together. They're going to win the conference. It hasn't happened yet. But I'll tell you that if there was a year, this truly is the year. Baron Morton is back, starting quarterback. You have invested through the transfer portal to just completely reinvent the trenches. They beefed up the offensive line. They got 2 brand new tackles. The defensive line. Yeah, that thing is something. 4 brand new starters. 4 brand new starters. David Bailey highlights that whole thing. If you listen to a previous podcast of mine where I was handing out my Big 12 awards, check that one out. If you have not, you know that I believe in David Bailey to essentially win all the big awards in the conference. The Defensive Player of the Year, the Defensive Lineman of the Year, the Newcomer of the Year on defense. He's going to lead the conference in sacks. Like, I'm all in on David Bailey. That kid is a beast. He's a monster. He's a potential future first-round pick in the NFL. But he's not the only one. They brought in Romello Height as well to rush the passer opposite him. There's a lot of people who are excited about him. Lee Hunter is playing inside. He's a big boy. He's going to eat some guys up. And they add Skylar Gil Howard as well. I don't know as much about him. But what I do know is there was a lot of money that was sunk into those big men up front. That defense got big, physical, beautiful stuff. And of course, they have Jacob Rodriguez at linebacker too, and he is the best linebacker in the Big 12. Like that he just flies around the field, and all he does is record tackles and post great-looking numbers in the box score. Like, he's just certifiably good at football. And at the end of the day, that's really all that you need out of guys on your defense. Jacob Rodriguez is a football player. He makes plays. That's going to round out a pretty good front seven. I want to go back to the offense, though, because Baron Morton, really good quarterback, really underrated quarterback in the Big 12. And the Big 12 is dominated with quarterback play. Sam Leavitt, Sawyer Robertson, we talked about them. But there's other guys as well. And Baron Morton finds himself in that fringe top 5 area, which is unfortunate because that kind of puts him in a spot where he really gets overlooked and just not talked about. Doesn't get nearly as much love as the guys at the top. And he's a lot better than that. I'm looking out for him this year, and he's got some weapons. And honestly, the keys are really being given to him because Taj Brooks, their running back, is gone. He had consecutive 1,500-yard rushing seasons. He's no longer there. So they're going to be moving on from him. Morton, it's going to be up to him to make this passing game do its thing. But he does have Cody Eakin and Caleb Douglas back as his receivers. Terrence Carter Jr., breakout tight end potential there. There's guys for him to air it out with. It's all on the table. And I do believe in Baron Morton. I think he can 100% get the most out of those players. Eakin especially is someone that I think could end up having some kind of all-conference season at wide receiver. I'm excited for him. This offense, is it Baylor? No, but it's still really good. And it's a unit that I absolutely anticipate will be in the top half of the conference. And I think that the defense will also find its way into the top half of the conference. And if you have the number 5 offense and the number 5 defense, you're going to be in a really good shape to make a run to the Big 12 championship game. Good news as well, ASU gets to play Texas Tech. It's smack dab in the middle of the season, week 8 in October. This should be the blackout game for my money's worth. If it's not TCU, it's this. But this is a huge game. Week 8, Tempe, probably going to be a night game. There is a very good chance, if these two teams are as good as we think, going into that game, we could see College Game Day come out to Tempe for the first time in like 20 years. That would be exciting stuff. This is going to be a very hyped up game. I don't know all of the schedules in the Big 12 this year. I would venture to say that Texas Tech at Arizona State is one of the premier games that the Big 12 has to offer this year. And it'll be in mid-October, so we'll have a pretty good idea of what these teams look like. I'm very excited for that game. And to me, that is one of the biggest must-win games for ASU. It's certainly the biggest must-win game at home. That's not the Territorial Cup. That's a big game, especially because that was your introduction to the Big 12 last year, and you lost to Texas Tech. You didn't look good against Texas Tech. Now, that changed later in the season. The team that we saw at the end of the year for Arizona State would have run Texas Tech off the field, no matter how many frozen tortillas they were throwing. They would have dominated Texas Tech because Sam Leavitt was a completely different player from the time he was in Lubbock to the time that he was in Georgia. Georgia, but Atlanta, to take on Texas in the Peach Bowl. He became a very special football player. That's one of the reasons why I'm really excited for this matchup, too, is because we didn't get to see ASU at their best when they played Texas Tech. We will see ASU at their best. They're going to be in mid-season form. Everything should be clicking. So pending injury, they're going to be in a great spot to just be in a really good rhythm to take on Texas Tech, who beat them last year. And Texas Tech is one of the betting favorites to win the Big 12 this year. All the hype is there, as it is every year. But the hype is astronomical this year because of all the moves, the decisions that they made to get this team to where they're at. It's a very impressive football team. I'm excited for this game. I won't say I'm nervous, but this is definitely a circle on your calendar game. Line them up, see how it ends up working out for you. There is one more team that I want to highlight in my top 3, but I do have an honorable mention. I want to talk about another few teams as well. Coming up next on the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And again, thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. And shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. We talked about the dynamite juggernaut offense. We talked about the Frankenstein's monster. Now it's time to talk about Mr. Reliable, consistently consistent Kansas State. Kansas State got their butt whooped last year by ASU. The scoreboard lies because ASU took their foot off the gas in the second half. And Kansas State crawled into the game a little bit. They at least put some makeup on that pig. That was an issue that ASU was having, is they were not closing out games. We talked about it many times on this show, and that was something that a lot of Arizona State media had talked about is, hey, you got to finish these games. And then we get to the Territorial Cup, and that's what we hear from Kenny, and that's what we hear from Scattaboo is, twist the knife. Can't let up. That was one of the games where they let up. But that's when ASU was at their best. That was a game that I had circled as a loss for like the whole year. Right up until the day of the game, I pivoted. But going to Manhattan, very, very tough. Going to like the annual contender for the Big 12, even more tough. And Chris Klieman is a great coach, and he has been able to have them pretty consistent even after the great Bill Snyder stepped down. Kansas State is just a damn good program. Year in and year out. They know what they're doing there in the Little Apple. They've got some pieces that are back too. And Avery Johnson, tell you what, was sitting down with Christian Raw last month from Locked On Kansas State. Congratulations, Christian, on getting 1,000 subscribers. Phenomenal milestone. Well deserved. We were talking about Sam Leavitt versus Avery Johnson, and he says that Avery's the better running quarterback. I don't disagree, but I disagree. Avery Johnson is an elite dual threat for sure. That's not to be taken away from him. If he can become a better passer, he will be one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the Big 12 definitively. You can make the argument he is now. He would be definitively one of the 3 best at worst. But Christian told me that Avery Johnson could be a sleeper candidate to win the Heisman Trophy. That's a claim. That is very high praise for a guy who is a dynamic runner, got better as a passer, but did not see the takeoff that Sam Leavitt did. And keep in mind, same recruiting class, same opportunity. He sat behind Will Howard as a true freshman. He was a redshirt freshman last year. Looks pretty good. Same situation, just not the same result. And again, Avery did get better for sure. Not disparaging that at all. Not trying to take that away from him at all. But Sam is better. Neither here nor there, I suppose. Let's get back to the point. He is a very, very good player and a major upside kind of guy. Like, Avery Johnson is the kind of quarterback that can win you games by himself and lose you games by himself. Volatile is not the word to use here, but he is just absolutely that kind of football player where he can win it all for you, or he can make that mistake that just costs you the game. I do believe more in the former. That being said, he's got some weapons. They did lose DJ Giddens, which is a massive blow, but Dylan Edwards is a very exciting running back, and they've got some guys that are going to be able to make some plays as well. I know their receiving room is very different, but they got some size. Let's see how that works out for them. They're a stingy defense. They're losing pieces. They're reloading. This just top to bottom is a very good Kansas State team. They're very well coached, and they got a quarterback who could win them 10 games by himself. I truly do believe that Avery Johnson is that kind of caliber of quarterback, that he can take Kansas State, put it on its back, and win a football game. He's just insanely talented. Can he do it? We're going to find out. Because to me, that's the way that they get to the Big 12 championship game this year, is with Avery Johnson turning into an elite quarterback. I'm not going to say he has to be a Heisman winner. I'm not saying he has to be first team all conference. Doesn't necessarily have to be second team all conference, but he does got to be one of the three best. As long as he does that, I do trust the rest of his team to hold its end of the bargain. To me, this all comes down to Avery Johnson because Kansas State is 6-6 every single year, short of something catastrophic. So when you add in the right pieces, that makes the team better. When you add in a quarterback of Avery Johnson's caliber, you go from 6-6 to 8-4. And then if he gets better than that, you do flirt with 9-10 wins. And that's what will get you there. Unfortunately, ASU does not get to play Kansas State this year, which is a bummer because it would have been an awesome measuring stick game to see how far ASU has come since the last time they played them. Similar to Texas Tech, like we get to see a completely different ASU team. But with Kansas State, we would have gotten to see if ASU is at the same level they were or if they've gotten better because we did see ASU at their best against Kansas State and they diced them up. Jordan Tyson was bonkers in that game. So there's a lot of good things that ASU brings to the table and a lot of things that they were able to do right against Kansas State. I will tell you, Kansas State does not get crushed in Manhattan the way that they did to Arizona State. If you play that game 10 times, you play it 100 times, you play it 5 times, they're winning some of those games also. That's a good football team. They're well coached. They got some great depth, and to just continue hitting the nail on the head here and feeding a fed horse, if you would, Avery Johnson is that guy. ASU could definitely see Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. They round out my top 3. Kansas State, Baylor, Texas Tech. Put them in whatever order, and I totally believe you. One runner-up I have is Iowa State. And with Iowa State, you've got another quarterback in Rocco Becht who's just going to chuck the ball around the yard. Now, I'm curious what that looks like because Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins, his 2 receivers from last year, the one of 2 receiver combos in the nation to each record 1,000 yards. They're gone. They're in the pros. They're both Houston Texans, funny enough. But you don't replace those guys. Not easily. They did bring in some guys in the transfer portal, and Rocco Becht will throw the ball around the yard. Will it be as effective? I don't know. Will he be able to do as much as he did before? Probably not. But that's still a good team. It's still a good secondary. It's still a good defense entirely. It's just a very well-coached team. They've got a great home field advantage in Ames, which, by the way, ASU goes to Ames in November for a rematch. I don't know how I feel about that game. That's a good-looking team. I want to just mention really briefly BYU, because BYU would have been on this list if not for the Jake Retzloff situation. And I'm not saying that Jake Retzloff gone completely takes away this roster and they go from 10 wins to 6 wins. That's not the case because whatever they've got going on at quarterback could be fine and they still got the pieces to be good and that defense will still be stingy. But I really don't think that you can lose your quarterback who was as good as he was last year and then deal with all the outside noise that they are dealing with. And this is also a team that is due for regression with the tight games they were playing last year. And they had a little bit of luck on their side. There's just a lot of things that point to me that BYU is going to face regression this year. And losing Jake Retzloff did not help your case. That's all. TCU, I like TCU. They're definitely lower than the rest of those teams for me as well. And I am high on TCU, but I'm certainly not as high on them as I am Baylor, Texas Tech, and Kansas State. My top 3 teams at ASU could and likely will see in the Big 12 championship game. Don't sleep on Iowa State. BYU, maybe you'll prove me wrong. I still think that's probably a 7 to 8 win team. I don't think we see it in the championship game, but I'm all about making some rivalries. What do you guys think? Of those 3, who's the biggest threat? Who's the biggest threat that I did not mention? Who's your sleeper? Let me know in the comments. You can hit me up on Twitter as well at RichieBrads36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Thanks, as always, for tuning in to Locked On Sun Devils and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you're getting your shows and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. We've got a lot of fun stuff coming up on the Locked On Sun Devils podcast. We have stat predictions that are right around the corner. We've got all sorts of previews. I have breakout players and more. It's never been a better time to subscribe to Locked On Sun Devils. I'll catch you next time. Till then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.